What's your homeowners association horror story? Fined multiple times and threatened with a lien by the HOA because we would not water our grass during a major drought season. It was cheaper and easier to fight the HOA since the city and state passed regulations banning constant watering and green grass. The city had Google-like vans with cameras that'd be driving neighborhoods to catch violators and fine them. Super illegal. HOA can't make any regulations requiring homeowners to break city/state/federal laws or regulations. Only plant oak trees even after multiple arborists and botanists informed the board that doing so would give all of them various diseases and all would need to be cut down 10 years later or have been cut down because they have diseases and mites. I'm an arborist and seeing oak trees planted between the sidewalk and road for 5 feet of space drives me nuts. The HOA neighborhood I grew up in had 2 oaks in front of every house. 20 years later the roads and sidewalks are cracked or bulging. My father-in-law's condo corp has a shared pool. The old folks don't like to share, so they have all kinds of silly rules, like no more than 1 guest per resident, residents only times alternating every hour, etc. My Phil can't even take his own 2 grandkids for a swim because he'd exceed the number of allowed guests. So many rules the damn pool is usually empty. Because the residents were still breaking the rules, they passed a new rule that if any resident was caught breaking the pool rules, they would close the pool to everyone for a week and post the offender's name and reason for the closure on the community bulletin board. Ducking children. I would just constantly break a rule every week. Not my story, but my dad's. He moved into a new townhouse in summer of 2013. It was a foreclosure property, as the previous tenants were kicked out for not paying their mortgage and for not paying their HOA dues. They gave everyone in the HOA new patios and decks the summer prior. It was required, and you had to get a new deck/patio. Boo. The tenants had to pay for them in monthly installments in the next 3 years along with their HOA dues. As I said, the previous tenants foreclosed on their home. However, there was one rule placed when they got the decks, which was that you couldn't move out without paying off your deck first. He was told by HOA that he would not have to pay off the deck because it was foreclosed and he was not responsible at all for paying it off. Sweet. Free deck. He signed off on that. He moved in, but then he started getting assessments from the HOA for the deck. But, wait, he wasn't supposed to be paying for the deck. He fought it with the board. Even with the signed thing saying we didn't have to pay for the deck, the board went against him. He ended up having to pay off the remaining balance on the deck. To this day, he refuses to speak about this topic. It's a trigger for him. I'm doing a giveaway of 4 $25 Amazon gift cards when I reach 1500 subscribers. Like and subscribe to participate. My HOA horror stories all revolve around dealing with them as a dispatcher. The fact that a HOA doesn't want cars parked on their street has nothing to do with whether or not it's legal to do so, and there really is no argument. The police can't legally tow a car that isn't parked in violation of any law, regardless of what you like or don't like, but they will argue and want to talk to the chief of police. My ex-BF's father was part of the homeowners board for their townhouse community. His wife would walk their dog around the entire neighborhood every day and carry a notebook to write infractions to report back to her husband. Ridiculous stuff. Neighbors have a window AC unit. Reported and fined. Have a garden that's a square foot too big. Reported and fined. Some people have absolutely no lives. When we first moved and I asked the neighbor across the street how serious the HOA was here, he said bad, and then told me a story where he got a notice with a photo of his recycle bin being left on the street for too long. The photo was of him walking the recycling bin back to his garage. Lol, I had the HOA come out to approve a fence I was going to install. The lady at the HOA office was very nice and said my plans were within the covenant bylaws, etc. We just need to have the inspector check it out himself to sign off. When he gets to my house he says he doesn't understand what I wanted to do. I explained the type of fence I wanted to install, and he said that wasn't, from his knowledge, allowed. I walk him out to the street and point 2 houses down and say that house right there has the fence I want to install. He scoffs at this, walks down to look, and sure enough it was exactly as I described it. He tells me, well, we don't like to have a bunch of different types of fences in the neighborhood. I reply, I don't care what you prefer. The covenant says I can have that fence and that's what I'm going to install, because it's within the specifications of the covenant. Old fella didn't have much to say after that. I got a letter the next week with approved for fence install. My good friend had a story. Her and her husband moved into this gated community. She loves having a bird bath in her backyard, and she gardens a lot, so the decoration makes sense. Turns out her HOA figured out that she had said bird bath in her backyard. Apparently BIRDBATH equals LAWN ornament, which was forbidden. She told them she would remove it. A week later she gets another message saying that it hasn't been removed. It wasn't. Obviously her and her husband put it together that the HOA is snooping in her backyard. For a week, she spends her time outside sunbathing and setting her trap. Sure enough, an HOA narc opens the gate to their backyard and sees her in the instant call to the police for privacy violations. The HOA gave up and let her have a bird bath. She is now on the board of the HOA and they leave her alone. Our HOA ordered us to clean our recently power washed black shingle roof because all the shingles were so dirty they'd turned black. I had just moved into my house a few months prior when I got a letter threatening to be fined $200 stating that my mailbox wasn't black. I thought surely they had the wrong house because my mailbox was in fact black. So I contacted them and they gave runaround arguing that it wasn't. I told them to come look and of course they said it was on me to prove to them it was black. So I snapped a photo and emailed it to them. I hear nothing back for well over a month. Then get another letter giving me a courtesy week extension before I'm fined. I'm livid at this point, so contact the HOA again asking for an explanation as to what exactly the problem is. I'm finally told that neighbors felt my mailbox was rather worn and needed to be painted or replaced. So basically it wasn't black enough for them. So I ducking painted it. Now for the part that set me over the edge. After a few months or so I learned that the ducking HOA will replace a mailbox as it's covered under RUD terms. So I called them asking about why they threatened to fine me when they were the ones that should replace it, if not to standard. They stated it was because they had no open work orders for my mailbox and that it was my responsibility to notify them if it needed maintenance, not theirs. My family moved to a new neighborhood when I was in kindergarten. My dad had built an amazing playhouse for me and my siblings. It had miniature windows, a miniature door, working lights, even ag. It was basically a tiny house before tiny houses were a thing. It was beautiful. He had built it on cinder blocks so that we could move it to our backyard of our new house once we moved. Perfect, right? Nope. The Homeowners Association refused to let us bring it, citing that the neighborhood doesn't allow toolsheds because apparently they are an eyesore. Backyard playgrounds are fine, but somehow our playhouse didn't qualify as a playground. Me and my younger sisters were ducking devastated. I remember crying and crying because I couldn't keep the playhouse that my dad worked so hard on. Hell, I'm 24 years old and I still tear up when I think about it. Why did anyone care so badly that they'd deny some kids their playhouse? I still drive by our old house once a year or so. The new owners haven't taken care of it and it's fallen into disrepair. I have other stories about our HOA, such as how we were frozen out for having a non-traditional house color, grey. It was ducking grey, and a woman who used to walk around the neighborhood with a clipboard to write people up for offenses that shouldn't matter. Until a recent coup, our HOA was run by some of the pettiest people alive. Some of their hijinks over the years included sending us a nasty letter telling us that we were in violation of their covenants due to bare places in our lawn. We were in the midst of totally replacing the sod in our yard as part of a landscaping plan the HOA approved, sending us a violation letter because the trash can had not been moved back inside until 10 minutes after the deadline, 6 PM on trash pickup day, because no one has a commute or an emergency or works different hours than the HOA board members. This was sent with a time-stamped photo of the trash can. and my personal favorite, sending us a violation letter that we needed to replace our mailbox because it was damaged and we would be fined $25 a day until we did so. The mailbox was fairly new, so I went out to look at it. It was absolutely covered with bird poop. Cleaned it off and noticed that there was no damage. Shrugged and emailed the HOA that the problem was rectified. They came out to verify that it was, and I got another letter. More bird poop. A few hours of observation revealed that a hawk was perching on the mailbox stalking a chipmunk that was living in the garden around our mailbox. So I went to the garden store and got a bottle of Predator P stuff that scares away small animals and sprinkled it around the mailbox, causing the chipmunk to relocate. Problem solved. Sadly, I did not send the HOA an envelope full of the stuff. You have a message from the not nice man. Like and subscribe if you want to.